All right, so guys, settle down. So I have the absolute pleasure to introduce Jen Colamedici. Jen Colamedici, excuse me. I said that so quick. I did a Rob for a second.
Really okay. I respond to it all.
Okay, so that's people screw up Pennisi all the time too, and that's never pleasant. So here's the backstory here. Jen and I have known each other for a very long time. Jen started with, I don't know if you started there. Did you start at Coldwell Banker West? Okay, but I know she was at Coldwell Banker West, and I'll let you speak to that. But really, we got to know each other while she was the broker of record for RE/MAX Select. And for those of you who are not familiar with RE/MAX Select, it's the largest RE/MAX franchise in New Jersey. Jen really is a big part of the reason why it is the largest RE/MAX franchise in New Jersey, because she tripled the size of that organization during her tenure. More. 4 times the size, maybe even more. 15 offices is in that range?
Yes.
So we're very fortunate to have Jen 2 years ago?
Yes.
2 years ago, Jen joined us as a regional vice president for the North. And I have the pleasure of working with her on a daily, if not weekly basis. And the God's honest truth is she just brings such tremendous value to the table that when I was thinking about who I could have come up here, every single time, one of the jobs of a regional, one of the roles is when you don't have, if an office manager moves to Texas and you have an opening, you have to find the replacement for that office, but you also have to step in and help manage that office. And Jen has had the unfortunate situation of having many offices available at the same time. And what I'll say is she's done such a tremendous job of balancing that, and the feedback that we get from the offices that she steps into is always like, can we have her? We want her. So I think that when we were thinking about where the market is and her experience level in the industry, I just felt like what a perfect topic to have her come and speak about how to generate inventory. And I just think that it's the ideal person for this. So I appreciate you coming. Thank you for saying yes. And without further ado.
Thank you so much. It's really a pleasure to be here. Coldwell Banker is the best company in the world. Woohoo! All right. I just want to poll the audience a little bit and see where you're all from, because there's such power in where you are geographically. So can you just by show of hands let me know, hey, are you from South Jersey, Middlesex County and South? Okay, great, wonderful. If you are Passaic, Hudson, Rockland, North Jersey, Bergen County, where are you? Okay, thanks so much, guys. That's my region. I appreciate that you came out today. And the managers that show up, I'll put in a good word. So Morris County and Essex. Okay, great. All right, wonderful. Okay, so that gives me a little idea of where you guys are geographically. I always find it interesting in an audience like this that you kind of are grouped together. And I'm going to talk about that just a little bit, because you really should be getting to know each other, because there's a lot of power and a lot of referrals that come from each other. So I think it's really important that you all get together. I hope you guys stay for lunch. There is lunch, right? 1 o'clock, there's lunch. So please stay for lunch, and I'll try to breeze through this so that way you guys can enjoy lunch, and I'm going to try to keep it interesting. Oh, can we go back? Okay, so I'm going to actually talk about this. This is my time at Coldwell Banker when I was a salesperson. And I'm going to reference it back. So Mike, if you could just come back to that in the end when I, All right, so let's poll the audience here. Who all thinks that the market is great? Okay, don't jump up at once. Okay. So who do you think, out of this group, who thinks that there's challenges? Okay, Good. All right, let's talk about that. I'm so glad you're here today then. And, and there's no right or wrong answer here, and we're going to, talk about that, because if you're a seller, what's the market like?
Great.
Okay, great. If you're a buyer, not so much. You're in competition. But you know what? It's local. And it's hyper-local in most cases. Because if I talk to Sparta, it's different. Sparta versus Hoboken versus South Jersey. So that's why it's really important that you get with your colleagues here in the room and find out really what's going on. And what's the news saying about the market? Are they positive? Are they negative? They're negative. All right, guys. We can control the messaging right here in this room. We should be screaming from the rooftops how great it is to be a seller in today's market. Do you think we're doing a good job? Okay, so we're going to talk about that a little bit. All right, next slide. All right, car enthusiasts here. Who is a car enthusiast? Okay, sounds good. All right. So this is going to be a little bit of a loaded question here. And I'm going to actually ask Mike, and I teed him up. And I says, if you can identify with a car in any way, shape, or form, what would that car be? And, just as he was talking to the BMW dealership, who's, I guess, picking up your car to service your car in the parking lot, right?
I would identify myself as a Ferrari.
Oh, Mike is a Ferrari. Interesting. Okay. So why do I bring this up? So a car has many, many parts to it. And I find that I identify, and you're going to see through my presentation that I reference a car a lot. And the reason why I reference the car is because I feel like I'm a car, and I'm going to identify with the car as an agent, okay? And if you look under the hood and you see what's the engine is motivation. And that's what drives the car, the engine, right? And what do you put into to actually fuel the car? Is the fuel, right? The gas. So I think that's leads. So we're going to talk a little bit about motivation, and we're going to talk about leads. So they're two separate things. Okay, next slide. And this is my friend Jessica. So if she is the queen of, if you could just play that, Mike, I appreciate it. Oh, sorry. If not, okay. Can we just play it from here, and then I'll just put the microphone up?
This is a live link.
It is, yes. All you have to do, you should be able to just click on it. I apologize. So I hope we could see Jessica. Okay. Okay, thanks.
Good, because I'm struggling here. The Ferrari broke down.
Keep talking, Jen.
Okay. So Jessica is the queen of affirmations. She's very motivated, she's young, nobody's really beaten her up yet, nobody's really knocked her down, nobody's really kicked her in the stomach. She's actually happy. She's in good shape. So hopefully, you have to experience it, because I'm probably not doing this justice. Okay, here we go.
You are awesome. You are beautiful. You are smart.
Okay. There we go.
Now my whole house is great. I can do anything good. I make my
right, who here wants to be Jessica? I want to be Jessica. It's hard to be Jessica, especially when you're out there and you're working with the buyer, you're all over the place, and there's 30 bids. Thank you so much. It's hard. So I hope today we can think about Jessica and we can maybe inject a little bit of that motivation into our lives. And I think that's really what we need. It's spring, it's a new start, it's sunny outside, the weather's been rough, the market's been a little bit rougher based on your feedback, but you're in a good place, and I do know that there's this, that Jessica is going to inspire you. And I hope that I'll inspire you by talking a little bit more about things. So there's 2 reasons why an agent doesn't achieve the success that they really want to achieve. It's motivation and it's leads, okay? So we talked a little bit about the car. We talked about what's under the hood, being motivation, and we talked about leads, which is the gas that fuels the car. But there's other stuff, right? So we're with Coldwell Banker, we're with the #1 real estate company in the world. There's tires to the car, right? Wow, you have the most wonderful marketing team out there, and that's where the rubber meets the road, and that's marketing, is the tires. And that will enable you to go anywhere. And I tell you, and then there's the air conditioning, there's the other, there's goals, there's Real Vitalize, which I think is the paint on the car. So that's also another, analogy we could use, when we're talking about the car. But let's go again. And we talked about this in a little bit. So, it's hard not to feel beat up in this market. It's, all the pressures seem to be external. And also sometimes they're part of life, right? You're dealing with different things in your personal life as well. But also there's pressures not winning the bids, feeling like you disappointed your clients. And then there's negativity around interest rates, competition, and it goes on and on. Next slide. Okay, so what we need to ask ourselves is, am I serving myself or others by inviting this negativity? No. Okay, next slide. Oh, okay. Okay, we're going to be at the slide for a little bit. So this is an actual, honest-to-God, true story. So I'm a Westfield agent. There may have been some of you that have done transactions with me in this room. And you may know me from my real estate business when I was an agent in Westfield. And I had a client. He was a veteran. He was a very committed buyer. I was taking him all over God's green earth. I mean, there's really just no other way of saying it. But he was in a lot of bidding wars, and I was trying to help him through it because he had a VA. Even though I was trying to get the stigma list dropped, it was really hard because he wasn't putting any money down, and he was at a really tough price point. So he was kind of settling. He was thinking, well, maybe I could do a fixer-upper. I'm pretty handy, and all this other stuff, right? So this is Westfield, okay? So we were looking around Union County for the most part, and then he says to me, and I'm sure you've had this too, can we start looking in Morris County? So I said, okay, that's fine. We could look in Morris County. And I said, what did you have in mind in Morris County? And he said, Mine Hill. Now, no disrespect to anybody who lives in Mine Hill or does business in Mine Hill, but I thought to myself, where the heck is Mine Hill from, Westfield agent? So I'm going up 24, and I'm going up to Mine Hill, and we see the house. It's a dog. And then there were two houses in Hanover that he wanted to see. The other, the other one was a dog too. So then he says, this is the one I really want to see. And that day, and I'll never ever forget what I wore that day, but I had a button-down pink shirt, much like yours, Tim. Yeah. So it's just like that, right? And is there anybody here with a white sweater on? I had a white sweater, and it had pearl buttons on it. And I was just like, I am the shit. I am going up to Morris County, I don't know where the heck it is, but I am gonna show this house. And I'm gonna find him this house, and it's gonna be today. I was ready. So, trekking up, and it turns out I get out of the car, and there's mud puddles everywhere. But it wasn't really raining outside, so I really couldn't understand where the mud puddles were coming from, right? And then I go to the back of the house because that's where the lockbox was. And he says, Jen, he's like, this is the one that I think will probably need the most work. He says, because it says in the listing that it's not a knockdown, but there had been a small fire. So I was like, okay, no problem. So I look and I see that there is a red sticker on the door. So does anybody know what the red sticker means? It means that the house is condemned, all right? I didn't know this. I was like, we don't see a lot of houses like this in Westfield. So anyway, you're all laughing because you've been here, right? And keep in mind, I have my white sweater, and it's new. I don't even think I wore it. Well, we walk in, and actually the house wasn't so bad. It just looked like it was dated. And then we walk into the other room where the TV melted on the wall because there was a fire, and the walls were singed, and the walls were wet from when the firemen, thank you, when the firemen actually wet the walls. And then I realized, hey, the outside probably had puddles because of them putting out the fire from the outside. And I'm telling you, between the mud and the soot and the smell in my hair, I left there, and you know how I felt? I felt like I wanted to leave the business at that moment. I really did. Excuse me. So we've all felt this way, right? Am I speaking to anybody here? Because we've all felt like, oh my God, what the heck am I doing this? And what the heck am I doing in Morris County? And where the hell even am I? So but something happened. If you could just go past, just one. So this is the house that was on fire, or partially on fire, or whatever. Go to the next slide. Well, on my way back, in the same neighborhood, I saw this house, and it had a sign in front of it, for sale by owner. And you know what? I was feeling so low at this moment, I thought to cheer myself up, that I would call this number. Because what better way to cheer myself up than to call a for sale by owner? So, go back. You can't spoil it.
I thought you were pushing me that.
No. I'm Italian, guys, all right? So I'm going to be flying my hands around. This is just what I do. So, sorry, Mike. So I call, and I'm out front. Again, think about this. I'm in my car. I probably felt like I was driving a Yugo at that point. Michael was talking about the Ferrari, and because he's like so confident and everything. My confidence was in the toilet, man. I mean, I really was thinking that this is bottom of the barrel here. But this was a cute little house, and I said, you know what? I'm going to give them a call. Well, of course, all of you or any of you that has ever called a FSBA, they never answer the phone, ever. So I'm outside, and my message kind of went like this. Hey, I'm out front. I'm seeing the sign. Is the house still available? I'd really like to take a look at it. Just happened to be in the neighborhood. could you give me a call back? And I left my phone number. So she called me back in about 5 minutes. And I basically told her, listen, I'm a realtor. I showed a house in the neighborhood. And the house that I showed to my client, and my client's very committed, very nice, whatever, was on fire. So there was a long pause, and then all of a sudden she busted out laughing, hysterically, really. And I thought to myself, oh, I hope this is good or whatever. She's like, she's like, you sound very nice. And I probably almost sounded hysterical at that point, right? And because what I had encountered, and I talked about like my sweater and the whole bit and everything, and she laughed, right? So she's like, she's like, the house expired, and I am planning on relisting. She says, so it is available, but I'll tell you, I have no interest in listing it with anybody else because my brother, there was a relationship, and this, da-da-da-da-da, whatever. And I said, listen, I would just like to help this guy out. I said, he started out in Union County, he's committed to Morris County, the location would work for him, but listen, I don't want to pressure you, I just want to come and meet you. Okay, great. So a couple days pass, and then I call her, and I said, listen, I'm in the neighborhood. Of course, I wasn't in the neighborhood, but I'm in the neighborhood tomorrow. Would it be all right if we just met up, and just chatted about the house? And she's like, okay, whatever, but my brother, blah, 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 this agent, whatever. Okay, sounds good. So I meet her. And of course, I was a consultant. I talked about how I could do something different. So I staged the house, I listed it, and it was great. And I sold it in a second. It was very quick. So I think 11 days on the market. But what had happened was the appraisal came back. And it was $40,000 below what we negotiated. How many have had this situation before? It stinks, right? You say to yourself, oh my gosh, this is all gonna fall apart. So now she's talking about renting, she's talking about all these things, I'm just gonna keep the house, ridiculousness. You've all experienced this, right? So I somehow negotiated that she wasn't gonna have to concede at all. We went with a new mortgage company, we renegotiated, I don't even remember exactly what we did, but at the end of the day, I was able to get her that extra $40,000. So, which is no easy task because I'm sure you've experienced that, but I wasn't willing to take no for an answer, and I knew she wasn't gonna negotiate. So I was, again, she had a brother, she was talking about how wonderful a brother is, throughout the whole process. And I never really met the brother, so it was the day before, walked through something, and I was outside and I was tinkering with the sign because it was gonna close the next day, so I wanted to take the sign off the lawn. How many of you have been out front and you're like, the damn sign just can't get up out of the ground, and you're covered in mud and everything like that, and like it's flopping, and you don't know if you should put it in the car with the short side in or the long side, and you're kind of teetering it a little bit. So it's almost ridiculous. But who rides up but a guy in a truck? So the guy in the truck, I'll tell you what he looks like. He's kind of like Jessica. There is there's a driveway over here, and he walks down the driveway, and he sees me struggling with the sign and messing around with it, and he almost looks like he has 2 rocks in his pocket. I don't know what the heck he had in his front pockets. They were right here, and he was walking like this, and I was thinking to myself, who the heck is this guy? And then he introduced himself as the brother of the sister, and he goes, I have to tell you, he says, when my sister told me about the appraisal, he says, first of all, you sold it very quick. He's like, I'm very impressed with that. And I was shocked that he said, because he did talk about himself for the first 20 minutes and how wonderful he was and how he worked He worked on all these projects, and he built a house for one of the Devils players, and he was featured as selling the highest priced sale in Morris County, and so on and so on. I was like, oh, that's so nice. It's great. Nice to meet you. And he's like, I'm really sorry. He's like, but I have a relationship. So I said, oh, okay, I respect that. That's fine. I says, I'm just glad we're able to get things done for your sister. And, it was just nice to meet you. And if I could ever be of service to you, let me know. 2 weeks later, I get a call from the builder. And guess what? He said that, yes, he's building a 6-lot subdivision in Madison, $1.3 million and up, but he's not doing it single-handedly. There's a financial group that's behind him. So there's 10 of them. So he's one of the voices, but then there's 9 others that are like the financiers of the project. Would I be interested in interviewing to sell the new construction 6-lot subdivision that they purchased from Drew University? All right. So I said, of course, absolutely, happy to help. He says, I will tell you, he says, you're going to be interviewing against this other agent who I hope gets it. Okay, that's fine. All right. So I didn't even really know at that time, like, how to compete for this type of business. So I'm going to tell you that I wanted to do these kind of floor plans, but if you could just switch it over this way. I wanted to do this because this is a plat plan, and I didn't really know how to do that from this. And I found out that all this was so super expensive to do, and I was with the Rah Red Company at the time. Does everybody know who the Rah Red Company is? So I was thinking to myself, how the heck am I going to do this? So I was trying to fumble through it. But I got the listings, and I had them signed. And I was actually riding on Route 22, and I'll never forget the call that I got from the broker of the Rah Company. And I was so excited because I answered the phone, and I said, hello, how are you doing? And I mentioned her name. And she said, listen, she says, I have 2 agents in my office right now, and they're crying hysterically because they can't understand why a Westfield agent got this big project that they had been competing with. I didn't feel like Jessica then. I felt like Jessica 2 seconds before. Did I feel like I was riding my hot rod, that I was in my Lamborghini? No, I felt terrible. I'm like, that's all I could think of is, oh my gosh, I didn't steal this. Maybe I'm in over my head. Like, I was second guessing myself. Noise. Who else here hears noise? It's very easy. So I was, just saying, okay, I just have to regroup, pick myself up. And I said, my focus needs to be on creating this plat plan. How the heck am I going to do it? Also, the builder wanted a sign. And guess what? He wanted to be in the New York Times. And then guess what? He wanted to be in the Star Ledger and a feature. Okay, how am I going to do that? With my square tires from the Rah Red Company, right? Because I had tires, but they were square. So I really wasn't moving anywhere. So what I did was I was going online, like every smart person would do, and researching companies that can help me with this project. And Coldwell Banker New Homes kept coming up every single time. And it was around New Year's Eve, and I was doing an online whatever, and somehow the technology caught me, in a mousetrap, and I got a call from George Krause of the Westfield West office. And it was like New Year's Eve or something. And it was like a gift from God. And I'll tell you why. Because I was going to lose the listing. There would have been no way that I could have competed in the way that I did had he not called me. And you know what? I couldn't sign fast enough. Of course, I tried to play hardball and everything else, but I was really, really desperate. So, can you go back a slide? No, the other way. Yeah. So I'm happy to report that I sold every single one of those homes. I would not have been able to do it without my round tires, without the marketing team where the rubber meets the road, with the new homes team. Thanks so much. Because, and if you don't know who the new homes team is, they're awesome. Not only that, they did get the builder press. He was in the New York Times. He was in the Star Ledger. I had all this amazing marketing collateral. And guess what else happened? When I knew I got this project, I had an office to go to. I actually went to the Madison office and I introduced myself. And I said, you know, the project down the street or whatever, can you guys help me with open houses? And there were agents that actually stepped up and helped me with the open houses. I said, if I'm away on vacation and there's leads or buyer leads, would there be somebody here that can come meet a buyer? The power of the brand. The Rah Rah Red Company couldn't do that. They didn't even know how to help me, and they certainly didn't fuel my engine. So, again, I'm not talking anything bad because I'm just talking about my experience, what had happened. Because none of us really know if you're going to get a big project like this. I didn't know. This was such a random action. So, sold them all, and it was a huge success. So, I got my start in the business with expireds and with FSBOs. So, and that actually propelled me to do other things. So I highly recommend, I know there's not a whole lot of expireds out there, but I do recommend working with expireds when you can, and the old expireds, namely. And the pro tip is try not to close for the listing when you're on the phone. It's focus on where they would go had they sold when they listed. That's really a pro tip because you will disarm the seller, focusing on that. That's what I have found. The other thing to consider is focus on life-changing events. It's unfortunate. Who's dying? Who's in debt? Who lost their job? Who is retiring? Baby? You're growing your family. There's a lot of life-changing events out there. And actually pay attention on social media. Instead of getting so caught up with promoting yourself, take social media to the next level and actually write out personal notes when you find out that there's somebody you know that's actually graduating from high school, because it's likely that they're going to be maybe moving out of the area. Also, work to be a farmer. That's really, really important. Planting seeds and planting them everywhere. So every presentation that you've ever gone to, everybody's going to tell you, call your sphere of influence. Do this, do that. And the people you know and trust and everything like that. I say, yes, you should do that just in the same way as you should go to the gym every day. That's a given. In this market, we have to get creative, and we have to be a farmer, and we have to plant seeds in more places than just our sphere. And that's why I talked about making the phone call, because that actually triggers so many steps beyond that. We're in a CE cycle right now. So I know that NCJAR just offered an SRES, Seniors Real Estate Specialist course. And I think it was 6 credits that you get for it. That's a great designation to get if you could do it. I know like different boards will offer it, but it's actually, the marketing collateral is fantastic. I just moved my mom to assisted living recently, and every day she's telling me, oh, so-and-so is actually selling their house. So-and-so is selling their house, selling their house, selling their house. And she's like, and then she told me last week, she says, you know, Jenny, she says, this is so crazy. You must know these girls. They're real estate agents. They came and they did arts and crafts with us. So I says, well, what brand are they with? She's like, I don't know. I think it starts with an S. So I was like, oh, all right. So she's like, it wasn't Coldwell Banker. So I says, okay. So get out to the senior places and help them. Help create a lifeline for them as well. Because you know what? They're getting solicited and hammered by investors that want to pay pennies on the dollar for their home. And you could really be a lifeline for them. So divorce attorneys. It's an unfortunate reality, but this is a place that you could potentially get business from. And also, make sure you're telling the attorney that you'd be willing to be part of the consultation. So that's really also a really good thing. CPAs, financial advisors, lenders, estate attorneys, they're all hurting right now. They're all down in their business. How can you help them? And then, you know, I talked about this, offering a lifeline could be impactful to someone experiencing financial crisis. So I found that it's very hard to get foreclosure business from the Wells Fargos of the world and the Chases and all of that. Look at the credit unions and the small banks. That might be a good source of business. I was very successful with that. I was actually the preferred realtor for Merck Credit Union for a really long time. It resulted in about, I don't know, 12 different listing transactions. So it's really a good resource. So I'm going to leave you with this. I want you to ask yourself, what car are you driving? And what roads do you want to go to? I think it's really important to identify different streams or different roads to getting business, because you could be so impactful. And I cannot change the world, but I can cast a stone across the waters to create many ripples. And the reason why I said this is Mother Teresa. But I'm going to go back to the first slide, and then I'm going to wrap up. There was a cake from Coldwell Banker. This is before Jessica.
Yeah, I know, it's stuck.
That's okay. My husband bought that for me when I was disappointed with the Rah Rah Red company. And he said, you know what, you've arrived. You're with the best company out there. And he's like, I can't believe that they're going to do all of the marketing that you've been losing sleep over, and that you could just sell and do real estate and be amazing. And he bought me this cake because he's like, you've arrived. You've come to the #1 company. And I thought that was so powerful, because that's who you guys all are. You're the #1 real estate company. And I'm proud. And guys, I'm proud of you all. And I hope you be a little bit more like Jessica. Thank you for your time.
Woo!